Hey folks, Eric Smith here, radio voice of the Toronto Raptors, NBA host and analyst with Sportsnet. I want to shout out my man Chris and 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Even though I know, Chris, you're not a Toronto sports guy, you've got those allegiances to the Detroit-Windsor area, the Pistons, the Red Wings, the Tigers, and for some reason the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm still trying to figure that one out, Chris. Why'd you drop the Lions? Why'd you drop the Lions, Chris? There's got to be a reason there. We'll have to fill everybody in on that another time, I suppose. But again, check out 30 Minutes Live with CDP every Wednesday and Friday. It's on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook Live, you name it. Chris is everywhere across all platforms. And if you just want to check out the audio version, maybe you're going out for a walk and you just want a podcast or something, you can get it on Apple, Google Podcasts as well, Spotify, Anchor FM, and Radio Public. So again, I told you, Chris is everywhere. And I'm hoping that I can be a guest on the show at some point this summer as well. Wednesdays and Fridays, 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Check it out.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP on this Friday, August 13th. Sorry, what is it? August 20th. Got it Friday, August 20th. I have a double header today with I have two guests coming on today, one at 12 o'clock. Pat Gregoire from Coolbet Canada and the color analyst for the Halifax Thunderbirds of the Crosse League will be on shortly. And at 3 o'clock today, I have Mike Comito, the team historian for the OHL Sudbury Wolves, and he's also the Los Angeles Kings website writer, and he's also the author of a hockey book called Hockey 365. And I'm looking forward to speaking to both Pat and Mike today on my podcast. So like I said, guys, I've got a busy day today with two podcasts. And then Monday, I have Brian Corzio, the Sabres pre and post game host from the Sabres, coming on at 10 o'clock morning. And then Tuesday at 12 o'clock, I have the Philadelphia Phillies TV voice from NBC Sportsnet in Philadelphia, Tom McCarthy, who's also a play-by-play announcer for the NFL on CBS. He'll come on Tuesday morning or Tuesday at noon, and talk some Phillies baseball and his career in broadcasting and maybe some NFL as well. And I'm really looking forward to that as well. So just bear with me, guys. Pat will be on shortly. He's just a little bit behind. So while we're waiting for Pat, I'm just going to put some stuff on here. Just give me 1 second. This is my first guest today, Pat Gregoire. This will be his third time on Live with CDP podcast. Again, he's from Coolbet Canada, and he's a color analyst for the National Lacrosse League's Halifax Thunderbird. So anybody who's watching this has any lacrosse questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section, and I'll see if I can get Pat to answer some of your questions and stuff like that. You can also follow Pat on Twitter at P. Gregory. And just 1 second, guys. I think Pat's here right now. 1 second. I'm going to bring Pat Gregoire on from Coolbet Canada and the color analyst for the Thunderbirds. 1 second. Hey, Pat, how you doing?
Good, Chris. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Don't worry. I was just doing a little talking until you were ready to come on and stuff like that. So I'm just looking forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. Sorry I was a little bit late there, but I can hear you loud and clear, man. Loud and clear.
No worries. I always still like to check. There is now this room in here before I go live where I can have my guests come on and we can just audio checks and all that too as well before I actually go live, which is kind of neat. StreamYard, I tell you, people should be using StreamYard over Zoom as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the audio check before, if you can get your guests on a little early, that definitely helps. But unfortunately, your guest here today was running a little bit behind, but I'm glad we're on now and we can chat again.
Yeah, no worries. How are things going anyways?
Good. No complaints. Been really busy. Obviously with Coolbet Canada, it's usually the dog days of summer in sports, but with COVID pushing everything back, we had basketball running in late. We had hockey running in late. Baseball has been great for us this year. as well. We had the Olympics, some big soccer tournaments as well with Euro 2020 and Copa America. So things have been definitely busy with Coolbet. And then on the lacrosse front, very busy as well as a lot of the junior and senior leagues here in Canada were able to start back up. So I did some coaching this summer, still doing that as well. But then I was also doing the Ontario Championships a couple of weeks ago in Oakville, doing their broadcast. So, and then also getting ready for the NLL draft. That's next week. So it was scheduled to be in Buffalo, but obviously with concerns with the border, as we saw, pushed back, no essential travel. Yeah. So it's going to be held virtual like it was last year.
I found that out last week because I had Billy Joel tickets and a lot of Canadians couldn't go. And we had to kind of push Ticketmaster and the promoters of this Billy Joel concert to give us refunds. I would have rather had gone to the concert, but it was supposed to be to August 21st, but I have no idea if the U.S. government's going to extend it or they're going to open it up like we did with the Americans on August 9th.
Right. Yeah. So that's the big thing. I mean, you can fly into the States right now. That's a little bit of a loophole, but because it's in Buffalo, there's no direct flights from Toronto to Buffalo. So we would have to fly into Chicago and then from Chicago up into Buffalo, which would have been fine for the broadcast crew. But you got to think, Chris, the majority of the players that are being drafted are coming from Canada. So that's a lot of people you've got to fly in. A lot of the teams are Canadian, even if they're not Canadian based. The managers, the coaches, the scouts are from Canada. And it also is planning on being the Hall of Fame induction that weekend as well. So there was just far too many moving parts. So they're going to postpone the Hall of Fame induction, I believe, to later during the season when the borders are open up again. But then we're going to host our virtual draft, which is actually just announced probably about 7 minutes ago that we're going to do the virtual draft. It will still be available for folks watching in Canada on tsn.ca. So you can stream that live. The NL signed a deal with TSN. So all the games for the National Lacrosse League will be on TSN direct or on .ca. And then one game a week, the game of the week pretty much, will be on TSN on television as well. So huge news for the National Lacrosse League.
I was going to say that is great news because it gives exposure. And like I said, I would like to go attend a game this year in either Hamilton or Buffalo. Now, I found something out where you just came on, Pat. The OHL is not going to have any of their teams do cross-border traveling until November 3rd. And I'm just wondering if the league's been told by the provincial government that maybe November 3rd teams will be able to cross the U.S. border, because there are 3 U.S.-based OHL teams in Erie, Saginaw, and what was the other one? Erie, Saginaw, and Flint. Yes. I keep forgetting about it. I keep wanting to say Plymouth because they were the Plymouth Whalers for so long.
Exactly.
And then they went to Flint. So apparently I got this from Tony Sexton from Golf Today that November 3rd. So I'm wondering if the OHL has already been told by the government or somebody in the U.S. about when that's going to open.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, absolutely. I think all these leagues have to be in constant communication with the government, and things always change. That's obviously the plan right now. It could change. It might get pushed back. But I think that's a good date, as it's still a couple of months away. Hopefully we get things in order here with this Delta variant, and things can kind of settle down. We get higher vaccination rates. And then that border will open up and there will be no problem with those teams going back and forth. As you mentioned, it's not, they don't have enough teams to have an American division where they could play each other just on stateside. So that's a tricky part. And that was a big thing with the National Lacrosse League, is that, 75%, maybe even more, definitely more, probably about 85% hail from Canada. Or territories, indigenous territories in Canada. So the majority of the league has to cross the border, even when they're playing for an American team. So for the situation for the National Lacrosse League, very similar to what the OHL has to deal with for sure.
When was the Lacrosse League looking up to starting up the regular season? Was it the end of November or December?
First weekend of December. So I believe the first game would have been that Friday, which is the 3rd, I believe. And then Halifax would be hosting Saskatchewan on the 4th. So by chance, if the borders weren't open, I still imagine they probably have to switch some scheduling around. But for the most part, I think it's going to be all figured out by then. And, we'll have no problem with crossing the border and having to worry about anything about that.
Yeah, and also I heard yesterday Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, all their employees and fans and players, I guess, will have to be fully vaccinated as well. So it's going to be interesting the next couple of months and stuff.
Yeah,
with all that.
absolutely,
well.
Absolutely.
And the OHL, they haven't said nothing yet publicly, but I'm assuming they will eventually announce something as well about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to think that that's probably the route that they will take as well. As you mentioned, nothing's come out anything just yet, but I know for the NLL, a lot of those buildings where these teams play, they either have an NHL or an NBA team in them. So if their rules follow what the NHL and the NBA teams are doing, then most likely the NLL or the OHL will follow suit as well.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is I have some questions for you, and we'll just start with lacrosse first, and then we'll go to some NFL stuff. I wasn't too happy with the Eagles last night. I pay more attention to preseason football now than I ever have in the past, because last year we went 4 months without sports, and now it's like, okay, sports are on, I'll watch it. So we'll get into that after. But my first question I wanted to ask you, Pat, is thoughts on the return of the NLL and your 2021 Halifax Thunderbirds. How do they look so far with the roster for this upcoming season?
Yeah, so well, just initial thoughts on the NLL. I think it's great that the NLL is coming back after such a long hiatus due to COVID-19. And I was listening to an interview, Nick Sakevich, the commissioner, he brought up a great point. The NLL is probably going to be one of the last leagues to start again because they're in December. So we've seen MLB come back. We've seen the NBA, the NHL, the NFL would have, have played a season last year. So it's been a long time since lacrosse fans have been able to see NLL lacrosse. So I think this year, especially with that year, not having a season last year, we've seen a lot of turnover with roster. There's a lot, like this summer was a crazy free agency. We've seen a lot of big names move around. No retiring or anything. So, but there have been some trades as well. So I think fans are going to see a lot of new look teams. A couple of the teams that were bottom feeders last year went out, grabbed some big free agents. New York Riptide is one that I can think of for sure. They also had the first overall pick in the draft, Jeff Teat, who is a generational talent. So I think New York is a team that's going to be exciting. But looking at the Halifax side of things, I think they are going to pick up where they left off last. I think they're a championship contending team. They've added some big pieces as well on the back end. Their defense should be improved. And their offense is pretty much the exact same that they came into last year when they were one of the top offenses. They lose Ryan Benesh in expansion to Panther City, which is the new Fort Worth organization. But they also gained a big player in Stefan LeBlanc, who I think maybe won't be able to fill up the goal scoring that Ryan Benesh leaves, but I think he's the type of player that is going to provide some secondary scoring. He's a guy that plays really well away from the ball. He can set hard picks. He's a big body. Plus, he lives in Halifax. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be big to, all the local promotions, working with the minor lacrosse levels and really trying to grow the game in Halifax and in Nova Scotia.
How many teams in the league as of currently right now? I think you told me before, but I forgot.
So right now, I believe they have 4 teams in the East Division. Last year, so it was 4 teams in the East Division, 4 in the West, and 4 in the North. But then they added Panther City, so that is then an additional team in there. And then next year, Vegas will pop in. So I do believe it'll be what is it? What do they have right now? So what did I just say? Did I say 4 in each division? No,
yeah,
4.
Yes. 4, yeah.
So 4 in each division. but I do actually, the West has an extra, so it's 13. Panther City's 14, and then I believe Vegas will be number 15.
Okay. I was going to say, what did they name the Vegas team again?
They haven't named it yet, so that's still there. But they have their ownership group, and it's a pretty impressive ownership group with Wayne Gretzky, Steve Nash, Dustin Johnson, and then one of the owners of the Brooklyn Nets, Joe Tsai, who also actually owns the San Diego Seals of the National Lacrosse League. He has ownership in this group as well, too. So a very impressive ownership group. Obviously, you hear the big names right there, but Wayne Gretzky and Steve Nash also played lacrosse growing up. So they're no stranger of the game of lacrosse as well. So it's pretty exciting. I think Vegas, as you know, you see what they've done with the Golden Knights, a very good atmosphere, a great following. And I'm excited to see what the Raiders are going to be able to do this year, as it's their first season where they'll be able to at least have fans in the stands. So I think that's going to be really well received as well. And I couldn't see why not the NLL team will be a success there too.
There's one city, I don't know why they don't have a team, and they have all the 4 major pro sports teams there. And Detroit, I really think, have they ever looked at Detroit as a possible expansion franchise? They have the arena, and there's millions of people like in that area in Detroit. There's probably over 2 million people. So have they ever talked about Detroit as a possible expansion team for the NLL?
Yeah, there have been rumblings before. I think it just all depends on the ownership group. And I do think that now with Little Caesars Arena being built, I think for sure that could be an option down the road. That's a great point. They actually did have a team back in the early 90s, I believe it was, the Detroit Turbos. And they were a very, very good lacrosse club. I believe it was even into the 80s as well, but I think they finished up around the 90s. But they were a fantastic team. They had great crowds. And is just when it was a previous league before the MILL, the Major Indoor Lacrosse League, then merged with the NLL, and I believe that was one of the teams to go under. But that would be a great team. And Michigan has a pretty good history of lacrosse. It's normally field lacrosse that the players that have developed, but that's a great call, Chris. I think Little Caesars Arena would be great, and I think that just it would be finding the right ownership group. But I know Nick Sakiewicz, the commissioner, has been really trying to find ownership groups that already, like you mentioned, have either an NBA team, an NHL team, and then also have the rights to the arena, because then that's where they can, you're not fighting with other teams to fill in dates. Whereas if they're all owned by the same team, they're all working together to evenly spread out. Obviously, that was one big issue that the Toronto Rock had, is they had to compete against the Leafs, the Raptors, and then all the concerts that come. And because they weren't owned by Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, they were the last pick. So that's why they moved to Hamilton. And now it's just going to be Hamilton, the OHL team, and the Rock that are going to have to work hand in hand for that schedule. So Detroit, great call. I think that would be an awesome place for an NLL team.
Well, and the thing is, it would give them more dates to fill the arena. Like, obviously, they got the Red Wings and the Pistons, and they would get first priority. But they would always have those 2 teams going on, plus a lacrosse team, plus they get a lot of concerts there once things get better. So, to me, and I think I shouldn't speak for them, but I think the owners of the Red Wings or the Tigers I think it would be good for the league. And I think the lacrosse league would do well in Detroit, just given the right ownership, like you said, right ownership and management, and letting people know what the sport's like, because I'm still learning about it all the time.
Absolutely. I definitely think that's a no-brainer. I haven't really heard too many rumblings in the last few years, but I do think that right now that certainly should be a high priority area. And I know that they're really working on getting more and more teams into this league. I imagine they'll probably want to add a couple of more Canadian teams. Edmonton has been rumored to get back into the league. They were the Saskatchewan Rush before they moved there, so they want to get a team back. And there's apparently some interest from the Oilers ownership group to put a team in that building. And like you said, Chris, these teams have to fill up these arenas, these multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar arenas, right?
Yeah.
And it costs money for for an arena just to sit empty on a night, right? So
Yeah.
if you can add more of those dates when, let's say in the winter, when, especially for Detroit, by chance, if the Wings and the Pistons are away, and you don't have a concert coming in, that's a full weekend. That's a lot of money missed out, right? So if you can fill in those dates, like, and I think a team, I was on the Canadian teams, to go back to what I was just saying, Winnipeg would be another, I think, a great option as well in terms of the Canadian team. Their building is already pretty full, so they don't really have to worry about that too much. But the game of lacrosse is really growing in Manitoba, and I think just the support that that city has shown for all their teams, especially with the Jets, the Manitoba Moose as well. I think that is certainly a no-brainer. But sticking with the theme with some American teams, I think Nashville, I've heard a lot of interest in putting a team in Nashville, potentially another team in California as well, maybe a San Francisco team, a new building there as well. So the ongoing theme is the teams that already have the infrastructure in place with a building, and if you can pair it with a team that's owned by, a building that has, either NBA or NHL ownership tied to it, that's usually a winning formula. But there are also some outliers as well. As a team like Halifax, definitely a smaller market, a smaller building, but it's been very successful in their first year. A team like Saskatchewan, in the last 5-6 years since they've entered the league, have had the best attendance by far, and they sell out that building at Saskatchewan night in, night out. But then there are those other instances, but the teams like the Buffaloes, the Colorados, those teams that have NHL and NBA ownership already in place, and they have that fan base deeply rooted, it's great. So it obviously might be a struggle at the start, but if you can find the right ownership group that can support and, as you mentioned, push that marketing, and fill out those dates, it seems like a really good winning formula for the NLL.
Well, and look at the CEBL. They just expanded to Scarborough, which is their 8th team. And then Montreal is going to be the 9th franchise, from what I've been told. So I think eventually the CEBL will have at least 10 teams. And I know the CFL is still looking at Halifax, but I think that was put on hold because of the pandemic. So, but like I said, if you do it the right way, and I think what your league, the NLL is doing it, and the CEBL is doing it the right way. You don't want to have 2, 3, 4, 5 teams coming at once. You want to spread it out and do it smartly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I kind of was surprised, and I'll be honest, I don't follow the CEBL too intently, but I do definitely keep tabs on the league, and with you being involved with the Guelph team as well. So I follow a lot of the teams, keep tabs on the league. But I was pretty surprised when I first found out about the league that there wasn't a team based in the GTA, and having that Scarborough team now is great. I think what they're doing there is fantastic. I don't know where they're going to play out of. I don't know if you know, Chris, but it's I think Scarborough, I mean, I grew up in Ajax, so I'm only about 15-20 minutes away from Scarborough. A lot of my friends in high school, even that grew up in Ajax or lived in Ajax, they would go and play their travel basketball in Scarborough. So there is so much grassroots growth and development in basketball right now, for Scarborough. So I think it's a no-brainer for these kids to know, okay, you know what, if you go down to the NCAA or you stay here and play CIS basketball, and if you don't make the NBA or you don't make the G League or you don't want to go overseas and play in Europe, there is somewhere to play right here at home in Canada. And it's quality basketball as well, too. It's very good basketball, and it's only going to make the product of basketball in Canada even better, because these kids are going to be able to see that there is a place to play, once your collegiate season or your collegiate careers are done.
I was going to say the MasterCard Center where the Leafs practice. I'm wondering if that would be, like, to me, the CEBL, I think they'd want some arena with 5,000 seats. I don't know if that even seats how many people, but that would be one possibility. But I don't know about the seating capacity for that practice facility where the Leafs are.
Yeah, and that's kind of closer to like a Etobicoke, so I think they probably would want to play on the east side of the city, right? Yeah. So I'm trying to think if there's anything in Scarborough that they could play there, and I'm drawing a blank. I know that they built a building for the Pan Am Games, so
Yeah.
I'm not too sure what that building would hold, but that could potentially be a spot. I know that was either in Scarborough or North York or something like that around there. I'd be interesting to see. But so is that kind of the formula then, Chris? I'll ask you, although I know you're doing the interview, I'll ask you a question here. But is that kind of what a lot of the CEBL teams, they play in those mid-size arenas like the OHL arenas and whatnot, right?
Yeah, like the Nighthawks play at the Sleeman Center.
Yep.
The Honey Badgers play at the First Ontario Center, but that is way too big. And I think eventually they're going to renovate it and get it down to maybe 10,000 people. I'm not sure on that. But,
Yes, actually, yeah, you are correct. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
I know that because Hamilton, they're going to be hosting the Toronto Rock, right? So
Yes.
that was one thing as well, because it does seem like it's a very big building, and but that was one thing that they did say, that they are going to be doing some renovations, adding in some luxury suites and stuff. So that's going to take away some seating.
Well, it's like Ottawa plays where the 67s play.
Yep.
Ideally, I can't speak for the league itself, but most of the teams play in arenas between 5,000 and 6,000, and I think that's perfect. I don't think they want to play in NHL size arenas, because if you get 4,000 or 5,000 people in those arenas, it still looks empty. So I think ideally they want the teams to play in OHL size arenas.
Right. So, I mean, I'm just looking right now. I looked it up. It's the Toronto Pan Am Sports Center. And it looks like it's actually a huge facility. But it looks like that probably could maybe hold the number one court. It says it looks like it probably could hold maybe a couple thousand, but you probably could put in some temporary seating on game days to add a couple more thousand in there. So, and you know what, if you're going to draw 3,000-4,000 a game, I'd rather have it packed and sold out. Obviously, COVID, depending on social distancing rules. But once we get back to normal, I've always found, even if you have a building that, let's say, holds 12,000, and you have 8,000 or 7,000 in that building. If you have a smaller building and it's almost full to capacity at 5,000, that building sounds way louder, just because it is a smaller, more intimate building. So maybe that's what this Scarborough team's going to do. And I think that would be something that'd be very interesting. And I think it's going to really, really thrive in that area, because Scarborough's a basketball hotbed.
And that's what the league was looking at too. And I can't remember the owner's name, but I guess he has something to do with OVO.
Yes, I did see that too.
Yeah, I think it's a gentleman's younger. I think he's 36 or 37 years old. But the way the league's run with Mike Morreale as the commissioner, I think they're doing it right. And they've already got the team's name, the Shooting Stars. And I think they already got their logo, and they're already on social media. So I'm looking forward to that. As for Montreal, I'm not sure where they would play and when they're going to start up, but I think the league's heading in the right direction as well. So
I'd be curious if maybe they would play in there. I believe there's a relatively new arena in Laval where the hockey team plays there, because actually, Chris, again, lacrosse gets brought up, but that's one market that I've heard a lot of rumblings to potentially get a team is Montreal, but they would play in that building at Laval, not in the Bell Center, because again,
too big,
way too big. 20,000 people, like maybe for a playoff game, once you really grow a fan base and pack that place. But the Laval Center is a lot smaller. I forget the name of it, but that would be definitely a great spot for a CEBL team too.
Definitely. Okay, just a couple more lacrosse questions I wanted to ask you. I know it's going to be hard for you to answer this because the league's been shut down for a long time, but who do you think could be some of the top NLL teams, in your opinion, for this season coming up?
Right. Well, you know what? To be quite honest, I'm going to sound biased here, but I do think the Halifax Thunderbirds are a championship caliber team. As I mentioned before, they were one of the heavy favorites to win before we hit the pause button and then eventually the cancellation button before COVID-19. But they pretty much returned their entire roster with a couple of changes and more additions, I would say, and some quality additions. I do think, but they're in a very tough division. A team like the Toronto Rock, another team that I kind of have circled as a top contender, and the Buffalo Bandits, and both those teams are in their division. And I believe the way that the alignment works this year, instead of last year where it was 3 division, it's just going to be an East and a West. And I believe it's the top 3 teams get in on the East side. So it's going to be tough. There's going to be some good teams, left out. Georgia's another great team. They're always a championship contender team. But if you look on the West, I think the no-brainer right now is the Saskatchewan Rush. They're a championship powerhouse. They since they've moved to Saskatchewan, they've always been the top team in the West. I think they've won something crazy like 11 straight West Division championships in the regular season. The only question mark they have is they haven't re-signed their veteran goaltender, Evan Kirk. So they have to figure out what's going on in net. And if they do, there's no reason why Saskatchewan can't be a top team.
Okay. Yeah, because I know it's like with the OHL. I got people asking me, and I'm like, guys, there's going to be a lot of player turnover, a lot of rookies. I know the Gold Storm this year have 13 first-year players on their team. So I've told people I'm not making any predictions. I'm just glad the league's back. But when you have that many changeovers and new players, it's going to take time for the team to gel and get used to playing each other. And as you know, rookies too in a league, even in the lacrosse league, it takes time to get used to that league. Yeah. And mistakes are going to happen too.
Yeah, and Chris, I mean, it's going to be even crazier for the OHL considering that there's only a certain amount of, players that can play due to age, right? So you're aging out players that are graduated. Now there's going to be two rookie draft classes essentially because they missed out on a season last year. So you look at that and it's completely totally a wild card. But you know what? It's going to provide some great entertaining hockey because you don't know who's going to be the top teams. I mean, you could look at on paper and see, but as you mentioned, there's just far too many X factors going into a season like this. And I don't want to call it an unknown season, but it's pretty close. I certainly know I'm excited to get back in and watching some OHL hockey. I try to go to as many Generals games as possible. That's the closest team out this way. So, I definitely am looking forward to getting the OHL back.
Yes. Okay. And just 2 more lacrosse questions for you, Pat. Are you still good for time for a little bit?
Absolutely, man.
Okay. Who do you think could be the top 5 players in the NLL this year? Top 5 or even top 3?
Wow. I can give you my top 5. So I think I'll go with a couple of guys off the top. I think right now the best player offensively is Lyle Thompson. He plays for the Georgia Swarm. He is just an unbelievable special talent. What he can do on both sides of the floor. I mean, generally it's, you play offense, you get off the floor, and then the defense comes out. But he has the capability, if he has to stay on the floor, he can play defense. He's got some of the best hands I think I've ever seen. His IQ is through the roof. He's a physical specimen. He's just, when he's on the floor, you have to keep your eye on number 4 because he's an electrifying player. I think, Mark Matthews is another one. He's won an MVP before. He's a part of the Saskatchewan Rush. He's a big reason why they've been, I don't want to call them a dynasty, but as close as you can get to a dynasty, winning multiple championships. And so I think he's got to be there in that top 5. From a defensive side, I think Graham Hossack, who plays for the Halifax Thunderbirds, by far the best defensive player in the game right now, 3-time defender of the year. And the thing with him is he's getting better offensively. So when he pushes the ball up the floor, he's scoring on those odd man rushes. He's setting up plays. He can even stay on offense now, and if you want to. So I would, and I didn't want to say him first, but I think you can make an argument that Graham Hossack is the best overall player in the National Lacrosse League there. So that's my top 3. I think Shane Jackson, another Georgia Swarm, he won the MVP the last time they touched the floor. He's a guy that is, he's short in stature, but he takes a beating. He's not afraid to go to the middle. He's got great vision, great hands, great lacrosse IQ. So I think he's got to be in that top 5 as well. And then I think to round out my list, Oh boy, who else can I throw in there? I'm gonna say, I'll say, actually another Georgia Swarm player is maybe Randy Stotts, or maybe we can go with another team as well. I'm gonna say Mitch Jones for the Vancouver Warriors. He's he's had a couple of really, really good seasons in a row. And I think he had about 74 points last year. I think he's poised to have another really, really big year as well. So,
Okay. Well, I was going to say, and then my next question I was going to ask you, we talked about this the last time I had you on my podcast, but just wanted to get your opinion. How do you think the Toronto Rock will perform record-wise, and also being in their new city of Hamilton? And how do you think the fans will take to this franchise, still keeping the name Toronto instead of changing it to Hamilton or Ontario? I think it's a mistake in my opinion on that.
no doubt. It's definitely, I would say it's for sure. I don't want to call it a mistake, but maybe something that they probably should have dug into a little bit more. And I understand, the reason why they did it. They want to keep their legacy, but I think once they get there and once the people see the product, they're going to fall in love with the game. I think it's going to take them a little while to warm up to that Toronto name, and maybe next year or down the road they change to the Ontario Rock.
Yeah.
But I do definitely think that it was a little bit of a misstep, and I think they're setting themselves back. But I think that, with the ownership group that they have in place, with the marketing group, and with the actual team they have on the floor, who I think can contend for a championship, I think that's going to make up for it. But I do agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of people off the hop that are going to be very concerned that they're named a Toronto team. But they've signed a long-term deal with that building, so they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So at least that's a vote of confidence, saying that, we're not just coming here for 1 or 2 years. We're here for the long run. We want to be here in Hamilton, and I hope that's the case. I really do, Chris, because I think Hamilton is a no-brainer to have a lacrosse. They have a lot of rich history. It's close to Six Nations, the reserve as well, who also has a deep-rooted history in the game of lacrosse. And also just, tons of players that play in the league are from that area as well. The Hamilton, the Burlington, it's close to Oakville as well. As I mentioned, Six Nations. So it's so close to a lot of these lacrosse hotbeds that it makes it makes perfect sense. But I do agree with you, Chris. Having that Toronto name is certainly going to, I don't want to say, I'll say it. It's going to rub people the wrong way. And it already has rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah. I was going to say, and they have to find out a night for them to play, because I know the Bulldogs' main nights there are, I believe, are Saturdays and Sundays. So I guess they're going to have to work with the Hamilton Bulldogs and the city of Hamilton for dates for the Rock as well.
Yeah, so from what my conversations that I've had with the owner, Jamie Dowick, and any conversation that I've heard him on air, he sounds like they're going to get a majority of their games on Saturday. So I assume they've worked something out with the Bulldogs, maybe the way that they can work their schedule. The Bulldogs will have maybe more Sundays to start the year off, but then when the Saturdays, but then when the NLL season starts, maybe they'll flip to more Sunday games, or when the Rock are out of town, that's when Hamilton then will play those Saturday night games. But that was a big reason why they moved to Toronto as well. Obviously, I said that, just the attendance wasn't great. The building cost, so much, but it was also the fact that Toronto, because they were competing with, with the Raptors and with the Leafs and with those concerts, they were getting a lot of Fridays, which is very tough to get to Toronto, as you know, with traffic on a Friday night at 7 or 7 o'clock or 7:30. So I know they're happy with that Saturday night, and that then allows people, like I mentioned before, from Oakville, Burlington, the surrounding Hamilton areas to get in as well.
Okay. And the next question I wanted to ask you, Pat, you just tell my audience a little bit about Coolbet Canada and what your role with their organization is again.
Yeah, sure. So Coolbet Canada, we are, most player-friendly sports betting book, poker, and casino website on the market, and we do really pride ourselves on being the most transparent gaming site in the world as well. So if you are a big fan of sports wagering, come on over to coolbet.com, slide into my DMs at pgreggy on Twitter or at pgreggy22 on Instagram, and I'll hit you up with a little bit of a promo code to try out our website. But yeah, so we're excited. We're Canadian based company. We pride ourselves off being super Canadian, and then obviously with legislation passing recently, full single game betting is going to be allowed here in Ontario very soon, and we plan to be one of the first sports books that are going to be able to offer that to you, legally and fairly as well.
Okay, thank you for that. And now we're going to get some.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, in my role with the organization, I'm the marketing and social media director. Anything that you see on our social media or anything on, anything, our YouTube, any sort of digital, that's me. That's what I'm doing. I have a great staff below me as well. So I just take in charge of all the marketing, social media, and video content, I could say.
And I was going to say that's huge nowadays too for any business, and that is to get your presence out there on social media and video content as well. And I finally joined TikTok 5 weeks ago. I never thought I would, but you know what? I'm using it, and I'm using it to promote my podcast. And it's, if you use it the right way, it can be very helpful to get you more exposure to your business or your podcast or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're already one step ahead of me, Chris. I'm not on TikTok. That's something that I've got to learn and got to hop on. I know all the kids are on it right now. So good on you for learning. I think that's one thing in this industry that you do have to continue to do is learn and adapt as new technologies and as new things come on, because, with this industry and with any industry, really, the more you can do and the more you can market yourself, the better.
Definitely. What I was gonna say, I was gonna ask you something. I always write stuff down, but I forgot to do that. But I was gonna say, now I remember. There are people actually my age or older on TikTok too. So I came into this TikTok thinking, oh, it's only 20-year-olds and young kids on it, but there's actually people that are my age or older on there as well, and it's just amazing. And like I said, I think it's a great tool, and I even notice OHL teams and even CFL teams are even on TikTok as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one of the more popular platforms for the younger generations. And I know a lot of brands, teams, they're trying to gauge to that demographic, right? So if you're looking to grab on to that younger crowd, because as we know, their attention spans are very short, and TikTok's quick little hitters. So it's a no-brainer. I think you got to be on there.
Yeah, there was the only one catch is if you want to go live and do a podcast or do a show on there, you have to have 1,000 followers. So I've still got a ways to go yet, but you can also cut videos 15 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, and then up to 3 minutes. So right now, that's what I'm doing is cutting promos on there, and then I can actually transfer them onto Instagram as well. So yeah, if you get a chance, I would check it out. I was going to ask you, is the National Lacrosse League on TikTok yet? Because I think that would be good for their sport too.
I'm pretty sure they are.
I should look that up.
You could look it up. I'm sure it'd be at NLL or at the National Lacrosse League. I know they're pretty spot on when it comes to promoting their stuff on social media. I know they're on all the platforms, so I definitely take a look, see, and maybe give them a follow.
Yeah, because I know the Michigan Wolverines football team finally went on TikTok as well. So, and yeah, I'll put it on here anyways. If anybody here is watching or listening, you can follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. So just give myself a little promo right there.
Little shameless plug, never hurt anyone, Chris.
No. So, okay, so I got a few. You still okay for a few more minutes? I got some NFL questions for you. What do you look forward to in the 2021 NFL season?
Honestly, I think this year Well, one, just having fans back in, I know we got a little taste of it near the end in certain buildings, but it sounds like majority of the buildings are going to have fans in the stands at close to full capacity, if not full capacity. So, I mean, you and I both know, the game day experience of an NFL game is the best, and it's having the fans in the building. It makes such a difference. And you can say what you will about home field advantage in certain sports and whatnot, but I do truly believe in the National Football League, a home field advantage certainly makes a big difference. So having that back is great, but from an actual on-field standpoint, I do really honestly think that the majority of the teams that we saw have really successful seasons last year. I think they're the teams that are probably going to be pegged as the heavy favorites as well. So I don't know if it's going to be I think we're going to see a lot of what we did last year, but I'm just really excited to see, are the Bills going to be able to repeat what they did last year? Was last year a fluke with the New England Patriots not being great, or has the torch been tossed, passed to the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, or, are the Patriots going to, I do think the Patriots are going to be much better than they were last year. So I think it's not going to be a cakewalk for that division. But I mean, the Bills should certainly be the favorites to win that division. I know from a betting standpoint, they are the heavy favorites right now. But I'm just looking forward to just having football back. I know we had it last year. It was a little bit of a weird season, but I'm just excited to get things going again. I think there are a lot of great storylines. Tom Brady, can the Buccaneers, can they repeat the revenge tour for Kansas City? What are they going to be able to do to bounce back? They really improved their team from an offensive line standpoint, which they needed to tremendously, as we saw in that Super Bowl final last year. But I think it's going to be great. And I think one underrated aspect of the season that I'm looking forward to is that NFC West division. I think that division, you look from top to bottom, the 49ers, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals. All those teams are, I think, any one of those teams, like to see the Cardinals, they're probably the bottom team there, but they're a great team. They made some great improvements as well. To see that, that there's potentially one for sure team's not going to make it, but potentially two teams not make it from that division is crazy. I think that division is going to be an absolute wagon. And the Rams, adding Matt Stafford, I'm interested to see what he can do with that offense. And with Sean McVay at the helm, a very creative coach. And the 49ers, what are they doing with their quarterback? Are they going to go with Trey Lance? Are they going to stick with Jimmy Garoppolo? So a lot of storylines I'm looking forward to, Chris.
I think the Niners are going to stick with Jimmy G for now, because I don't know if Trey Lance is ready to go yet, and I don't think they want his confidence to get shattered. So I really think the Niners will go with Jimmy G for now, just like the Patriots. I believe will go with Cam Newton too, just because these are veteran quarterbacks, and you don't want to lose them. And these younger quarterbacks, I think it's not going to hurt them to wait a little longer to get that opportunity. So my prediction right now is Cam Newton and Jimmy G will be starting the season off as quarterbacks. But for the mid-season or the end of the season, who knows? But I do think Mac Jones is a really highly intelligent quarterback with a high football IQ. And I think that's something that Bill Belichick values in a quarterback. And them taking him 15th overall in the first round, the highest ever in a Bill Belichick era for coaching for quarterbacks, means something. So right now, I would say Cam and Jimmy G for now, but we'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think that there's going to be pressure on both those teams to win right away. As I mentioned with the Patriots, not a great season last year. So that fan base is going to get very annoyed if they start out slow and Cam Newton's not playing great. If we see the Cam Newton that we saw in the second half of that season, they're going to be calling for Mac Jones to come in and try to, revitalize their season and stay in the hunt for the division, or even for the second spot in that, or a wild card spot, where you look at, a team like the 49ers. A lot of people are pegging them as a dark horse to win the Super Bowl. So same thing. If they start out slow, and from what we've seen from training camp and some exhibition play with Trey Lance, obviously the talent is there. His arm talent is unbelievable. But as you said, making the jump, it's so big. And I think you got to go with Jimmy Garoppolo. The ceiling isn't nearly as high as a Trey Lance, but I think they're going to be able to scheme the way that the 49ers run that offense. I think having a guy like Jimmy G, he's going to be able to run that offense no problem. We've seen him do it in the past, and they've got a great defense as well. So I don't think they're going to rush to Trey Lance quite as quickly, but I definitely think if the Patriots start out slow and Cam Newton doesn't look great, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Belichick to maybe make the jump to Jones.
Definitely. And that brings up to my next question. Do you think having a regular off-season training camp and at least 3 preseason games will help with the NFL defenses in 2021? Because last year it was just like NBA basketball, offense.
Yeah.
Do you think having a more normal training camp and some preseason football will help the defenses a little more this year?
Big time. Absolutely. I think it's going to help out huge. I do think it's also going to help out the offense because they've had their installs. They've had their mini camps. Like these guys have been, practicing with their offenses and going through everything, being able to be, at the facility during the off season where they weren't able to do that last year. They only could have a certain amount of people in the building. So that's obvious. I think it's going to help both, but defenses for sure. And I think we always see the offense have that advantage at the start of the year, and then things starting to tighten up near the end of the year. I shouldn't say even the end of the year, after a couple of weeks. But I think that gap is going to be much smaller than what we saw last year as well. And I think we're going to see some great. And it's the thing too, Chris, is these preseason, the more and more we move on and players don't like playing in these preseasons games. And I think you nailed it. It's not so much just the preseasons game. It's more of the actual regular training camp that they've been able to have. And I think that's just as important as having those 3 preseason games, because as you see in preseason games all the time, starters sometimes don't even get into the games. Certain games they won't be there, or they'll play a couple of series and then they come out. I think it's that training camp, the full training camp and that full mini camp, and having players being able to train at the facilities is a massive bonus as well. And I think the defense, we're going to see a lot more lower scores than we saw last year at the start of the year.
That's what I agree with that as well. Next question I wanted to ask you. This is going to be kind of hard too. Who are your top 5 Super Bowl contenders as of now for Super Bowl 55 in LA?
Another great question, Chris. I think obviously when you look, like you got to look at the 2 teams that were there last year, in the Buccaneers and in the Chiefs. I think those are 2 teams that are no doubters to be there at the end. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a rematch between those 2 teams. But then when you kind of look down, I mentioned obviously already the 49ers. I think they're a team. If Jimmy G looks solid and he can run that offense that Shanahan wants to run, I think there's no reason why they can't be. So that's what I said. 3 there. I got to put my Buffalo Bills in there. I know it's going to be a tough task for them to beat the Chiefs. But what we saw from them last year, I think if they can improve running the ball a little bit better, not relying on Josh Allen to throw the ball, 40 times, plus also run the ball 20 times, if you can alleviate some of his pressure by getting and establishing that run game a little bit more. Their secondary definitely needed some help last year. I think they've improved there. Their linebacking core is a little bit better as well. So I think they're in the mix as well. And I would say on paper, the Green Bay Packers, but because of such a circus of an offseason with the Aaron Rodgers stuff, I'm not going to pick them. And I'll say the Baltimore Ravens is another team that I think could be that maybe in that 5th spot. Just based on how great their defense is, how great they run the ball. I think Lamar Jackson has taken a lot of steps forward. He needs to prove, though, can he play in those big games and come up with those big throws in those big moments? We haven't seen it yet. We'll have to see if he can do it. But, Chris, it's crazy. I honestly think – I know I named those 5 teams there, but I do think the Chiefs and the Buccaneers are that much better than the rest of those teams. That they have the it factor. They have the 2 best quarterbacks – 2 of the best quarterbacks in the game. You have Brady, who's one of the greatest, and he's the guy that if you need a big win or a big drive, he's the guy you're picking. Doesn't matter his age. And then you look at, Pat Mahomes, he's the most talented quarterback in the game right now, best quarterback, in my opinion, in the game right now. What we see from him on a weekly basis is incredible, but very well coached teams as well, too, with great defenses that I think are very underrated defenses, especially the Buccaneers. I think everyone was talking about Brady's offense, but they forgot to talk about how good that defensive line was. So I think there's a gap between the top two teams. But those other three teams that I listed, I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to upset one of those two teams in the conference championship.
I was going to say, I like what Kansas City did with build their offensive line. They added to it and they improved it. And getting Joe Thuney from the Patriots is huge. And I think that's going to help Mahomes. I think it's going to protect him more. It's going to help the running game. And it's just going to help their offense better. I think they adjusted their needs. Tampa Bay didn't lose anybody. They kept their roster intact, which is huge. I like what Buffalo did with their draft. They added some pass rushers.
Yeah, they needed that.
If they can get more pass rush for their defense, that's going to help their linebackers and it's going to help their Pro Bowl quarterbacks even do a better job. And I also think if Singletary and Moss can stay healthy, because I like Singletary. He's like the Phillies version of Miles Sanders. And then you got Zach Moss, who's a physical bruising type running back. Those two styles are huge. So I think their running game is going to be huge with those guys. And if these young guys they drafted can help out with their pass rush, because that will definitely make their defense better. And you get Josh Allen in that offense, the ball even more times a game, and have that defense off the field quick, it's going to make the Buffalo Bills so much tougher to beat, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed that, Chris. I think that's one thing that the Bills did do. And I thought last year, their cornerbacks were great, but I thought their safeties struggled, quite a bit. But that was because you said they had no pressure on the quarterback. So that allowed the quarterback to have more time to wait, throw the ball down the field. Whereas if you do improve the pass rushing, that alleviates stress off your safeties. That alleviates stress off your corners. That alleviates stress off the linebackers. And it gives, and it's the same thing on the flip side. If they can run the ball, that's great. But if your O-line is strong, it's going to make your job a lot easier to run the ball. And it's going to make your job a lot easier to throw the ball, stay in the pocket. Josh Allen doesn't have to scramble all over the place. And I think that's one thing that this group took a major step last year, because a lot of Josh Allen's runs last year weren't scrambles. They were designed runs. And that's how, their offensive coordinator Dable likes to scheme things up. Whereas last year, there would be times where it looks like he was running, or 2 seasons ago, he was running for his life. And that also has to do with Josh Allen becoming a little bit more composed as well. But I do think if you can get that running game, and I know we talked about this, I think it was maybe after the playoffs or even in the off season, maybe the last time I was on here or on Instagram Live, you said it's huge. And if you can establish the run, I know it's not the old school pound it, but you still need a running game. You still need to at least have a threat to run the ball, because if not, they're going to just back up and force you to pass the ball 40 times a game. And Josh Allen's an elite quarterback, but throwing the ball 40 times, having him design run 20 times, that's just not a recipe for long-term. And obviously they just signed him to a long-term deal. They got to keep him healthy. They got to keep him safe.
Okay, and that leads to my next question. I only got a couple more for you. Thoughts on the you've already mentioned the 2021 Buffalo Bills, but what's your thoughts on Josh Allen getting a 6-year contract at $258 million and $150 million upfront guaranteed?
I mean, it's a lot of money. There's no denying that. It's a very, very hefty price tag, but I think it's earned. And I think you have to show confidence in your quarterback. You have to say you're the guy. You don't want to be a team like the Cowboys and have this circus that's been surrounding them with Dak Prescott. And you say what you will about that, and continuing to give them the franchise tag and not really showing that vote of confidence, saying you're our guy, we're going with you going forward. That then allows the quarterback to know, okay, I'm safe here. This is my job. This is my team. And they it just makes their lives a little bit easier. They don't have to worry about, oh, if I have a bad season here, or if I have a bad couple of games here, are they going to go to the backup? No, like, Josh, you're our guy. And what we saw from him last year, the steps he was able to take, he was an elite quarterback. In my personal opinion, up until maybe a couple of shaky games near the end of the season, he could have easily won that MVP. And Aaron Rodgers obviously just had a tremendous year. Right now, if you look at the betting odds for MVP, Patrick Mahomes is 1, Aaron Rodgers is 2, Brady is 3, Josh Allen's 4. He's in great company with those quarterbacks there. Am I saying he's better than all those guys? No, I'm not. But I'm saying he is, in my opinion, a top 5 quarterback in this league. I think he has to prove it. That last year just wasn't a flash in the pan. But if he can do what he did last year, there's no reason why he shouldn't be a top 5 quarterback.
Okay. And I just got a quick couple questions. It's basically yes or no answers. This one is, can Brady and the Bucs repeat as Super Bowl champions? And quick thoughts on the 2021 Eagles and second-year quarterback Jalen Hurts.
So with Brady and the Buccaneers, as I mentioned, I think I said those top 2 teams that we saw in the Super Bowl last year are contenders, and I think they're until someone can prove that they're not, they are going to be the top teams. And it would not surprise me if we saw Brady and Mahomes go back at it at the Super Bowl. I think they're a tremendous team. You mentioned it. We saw Kansas City, what they were able to do with their lineup. They improved it, whereas the Buccaneers didn't improve, but they also didn't lose anyone. They brought everyone back. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think that's the approach that they went. Obviously, Brady, he's 1 year older. What are we going to see from him? But I'm not going to doubt him. I'm not going to do it. I've done it before where I've said he's getting older. So I'm done doubting him. I'm done doubting him. When he shows that he's aging, that's when I'll believe it. So I'm done doubting him, especially in the big games. So as long as Brady's under center and he looks like what we saw him down the stretch, they're going to be a Super Bowl contender. In the terms for the Eagles, to be honest, Chris, obviously I follow a lot of your stuff with the Eagles, and I like to be in tune with the entire league. So I'm always following storylines and stuff. And from up until last night, everything that was happening in training camp, it seemed like it was very positive. That receiving core looks electric in camp. They've done a great job bringing in some good weapons. And I just, obviously yesterday, and I know they didn't start Hurts, which would have been great to see him. And I understand there's 2 lines of thinking. It's, you don't always have to play your starters, but Hurts is a young quarterback. I would like to see him kind of get in tune in these game situations, getting that chemistry built with the offensive weapons. And to not see him play last night and to see how much that hurt them. And I know they came out, they said he was sick or something.
He had abdominal pains, and I guess they were that bad. And Nick Sirianni said if he's complaining about being in pain that badly, they sent him to the hospital, I guess, to get checked out or whatever. So I think,
sorry, go. No, continue, Chris.
I think the plan was to play him last night for maybe a quarter or whatever, but unfortunately, I guess something like this came up, and they just wanted to err on the side of caution. Yeah. And I do think they have one preseason game left against the Jets. I do think you'll see Hurts in for at least a quarter and a half, because he hasn't had much time with Smith, Rieger, and Quaz Watkins, who you guys all should keep an eye on this year as one of the Eagle weapons. Quaz Watkins, he's one of the fastest guys in the National Football League, and I think if he can get the ball a little more too, that will help. I think the Eagles are still a work in progress, and I'm not making any predictions of how many wins. I do think they will be improved, just not sure how much.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. And I said it, I think every time I've come on this podcast, Chris, that division is wide open in my personal opinion. On paper, the Cowboys are a great team, but they do this every year. Every year we think this is going to be the year that they take that step and they do something here. But until they're the opposite of Brady. I'll never doubt Brady until he proves me wrong. The Cowboys, I'll doubt them until they prove me right. So, and I know you like to hear that because you hate the Cowboys being an Eagles fan, but I do think Washington, obviously, maybe you could peg them as the favorites, but I mean, they're an improved team. Their defense is great, but I don't feel comfortable saying that they're the heavy favorites to win. I think that division is wide open, and Nick Sirianni seems to be building a great culture around this Eagles team. And I think, and I didn't really talk too much about Jalen Hurts, but I think if you watch Jalen Hurts during his college career, the two systems that he played in really, played into his strengths. And last year I felt there was just far too many times where when he was in the game, he was forced into a lot of these tough passes and into tight windows. I think he's not that type of player that's going to drop dimes everywhere. He's a great quarterback and he's a great game manager, and he does have a pretty strong arm, but I think Nick Sirianni is going to scheme him up to make him successful. And I think the run game is going to be important as well. And I think he has a lot more targets as well. As you mentioned, bringing in some great pieces. They drafted a couple. I think they're a team I think they have everything in place to make an improvement. It's just we have to wait and see what improvements do happen with this team. But everything that I saw at a training camp, it was looking really good up until that exhibition game and the preseason game. But as we know, fans tend to get really worked up, and we're just passionate. We're passionate about our team. It's just a preseason game. Yes, it wasn't a great effort, but I wouldn't be hitting the panic button anytime soon. I do think that I would like to see Jalen Hurts get some chemistry with these guys going, and I want to see what kind of offense Sirianni is going to run with this offense. But I do feel like Hurts was kind of forced and rushed into some situations that weren't very great for him last year.
And I wasn't overly impressed. I know it was preseason. I'm not worried exactly of the win-loss result, but Joe Flacco is who he is, and Nick Mullins struggled last night. And my concern is if Hurts gets hurt this year, they're going to really struggle, because I think Flacco's at the end of his career, and I think Mullins is what he is, a third-string quarterback. And one other concern I have for Eagle fans is the pass rush. I like our secondary. I think our linebackers are okay. But if the Eagles cannot get a pass rush, they're going to struggle again defensively, because if you can't put pressure on the opposition's quarterback, I don't care who, it's going to make life very difficult for the Eagles defense if they can't generate some kind of pass rush.
Absolutely, it's true. We talked about it with the Bills, right?
Yeah.
We imagine that with the Bills improving their pass rush, it will improve their entire defense. So, it's a copycat league, right? Look at the Buccaneers. Look what they were able to do to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. What they have been able to do building that pass rush. I think you're going to see more teams really start to invest in draft picks and invest in free agency, getting these elite pass rushers. And even look at the Rams too. The Rams 2 years ago made it to the Super Bowl. They're another team I probably should have put in that race, that top 5-6 teams to potentially. It all depends about Drew Stafford, but they're a team that gets to the quarterback really well. You look at all the best defenses in the game. If you can put pressure on the quarterback, you're probably a top defense. So the Eagles, I mentioned that how there are some interesting storylines. I certainly think that division there, the NFC East, that is a division that I'm really interested to see, because it's wide open. What team is going to take that next step? Whereas last year, it seemed like no one wanted to win that division, right?
No.
So I think this is the year where all those teams have an opportunity. They saw what happened last year. They need to, go out and be that top team and take advantage of that division.
Okay. Last question for you. Actually, I'm going to make it a two-part question.
Sure.
Can you just name maybe a couple NFL teams that could surprise in the 2021 season? And quickly, just thoughts on Carson Wentz in Indianapolis. You think it'll be a good fit with him and Frank Wright? And you think Carson could stay healthy enough to help that Colts team? Because to me, they're one of the teams I think could be a dark horse coming out of the AFC.
You know what? They were one of my dark horses coming in, and I do agree. Reuniting Wentz with Wright, I think that was huge, and I think he's a guy that is going to be able to, I don't want to say revitalize his career, because he only had a couple of so-so seasons with the Eagles, and it comes down if he can be healthy. If he can be healthy, I think that is going to work, and I think the Colts are a team that can surprise some people. It's just now which quarterback do they go to keep them afloat until Wentz comes back. Do you go with a guy like Jacob Eason or Sam Ehlinger? And I actually really like Sam Ehlinger. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. It's just I don't think he's ready just yet. So you put Eason there. Maybe you don't have to run away with the division or anything. You just have to stay afloat. So when Wentz is back and healthy, you're not, so many games back out of that division. But they're a team, obviously, we saw last year, a great defensive team, a well-coached team, gave the Bills a ton of fits in that playoff game. So they're a team that I think you have to keep an eye on as long as Wentz can stay healthy. Some of the other teams that I am looking for, to being that quote unquote surprise. I think if you do look at a team, it's tough to say really, because I would maybe say, who am I going to say here? I will say on the maybe the other side, a team that we're used to seeing be really good. I think a team like the New Orleans Saints, I think they're going to take a big step back. I don't know if I trust Jameis Winston to take over for Drew Brees, and Drew Brees was not the Drew Brees that we were used to seeing last year. But they're a team that it wouldn't surprise me if they missed the postseason for the first time in I don't even know how long, but they're a team that I think maybe could surprise us the other way. Another team that I'm looking forward to seeing, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but I think the Chicago Bears are a team that could surprise some teams, especially if they go with Justin Fields. Man, that kid is going to be elite. I know they have Andy Dalton, and I know he's reliable. You know what you're getting out of him. He's not going to win you a ton of games, but he's also not going to lose you a ton of games. So if they go with Dalton, I think their ceiling is, maybe a 500 team. But with a guy like Fields, man, I normally like when quarterbacks, you sit them, learn under a backup and kind of go through and learn to become a pro. But I just think that Justin Fields is a special player. I think he's a guy that can come in right away and become an elite quarterback, much like another team that I forgot to mention as my other dark horse, I would say, is the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars are going to be a very good team this year. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to compete. I think Trevor Lawrence, obviously everyone knows he's, one of the most highly touted prospects at quarterback that we've seen in the last, few years. What he did at Clemson was tremendous. He's proven in the last couple of years he could run the ball as well, not only just pass the ball. But I think they're a team that might be able to surprise teams. Are they going to make the playoffs? I don't know. Urban Meyer, what we've seen him be able to do at the collegiate level is tremendous. But as you know, Chris, being a coach in the NCAA is way different than being a coach in the NFL. So I'm interested to see if he can continue to create that winning culture at the professional league level, that he is able to do what he's done with Florida and most recently with Ohio State. So those would probably be the 2-3 teams that I would say there's a bit of a surprise maybe that could happen.
Yeah, because to my knowledge, I might be missing something, but to me, Jimmy Johnson's really the only one I remember in the last 20, 30 years that's come from college football and had a lot of success in the National Football League. And I see the Cowboys are finally putting Jimmy Johnson in the Ring of Honor, and that should have been done 20, 25 years ago, because without Jimmy Johnson, they don't win those back-to-back Super Bowls or even get to the third one. Because I know Barry Switzer was their coach for their third Super Bowl win, but that was still Jimmy Johnson's team.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, even look at a guy like Nick Saban, in my opinion, the greatest collegiate coach in NCAA history. And, he had a cup of coffee in the NFL and it didn't go as planned. And he went right back to the NCAA, and he probably could have had many opportunities to take over an NFL coaching job. And when you're coaching kids, it's a lot different than you're coaching guys that are making millions upon millions of dollars. You can't talk to them the way that you can. And a big thing is recruiting. You still have to recruit in the NFL, but you're recruiting for money. Whereas, at the collegiate level, you're recruiting for kids just to come out and play for your team and go to that school. So recruiting is a much, much bigger thing than it is in the NFL, because you have agents that you're dealing with. You have general managers who are pretty much dealing with that, whereas the head coach really is not too involved with it. Sure, they're probably talking to some of the bigger free agents to try to, schmooze them into coming. But at the most part, it's the GMs that are doing the recruitment. So, very, 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 very solid point there, Chris, for sure.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, Pat, I'm going to let you go, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on my podcast for a third time. And
No
before I let
problem.
you, thank you. And where can people find you again on social media besides Twitter? I've got your Twitter IG or name right down there. Where else can they find you on Instagram and where else?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram as well. It's the same thing there at pgreggy, but add a number 22 at the end. So at pgreggy22, that's on Instagram. You can also just give us a follow at CoolBet Canada as well, at CoolBet Canada. On Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. You'll probably see my face on there doing some video content as well. With the NFL ramping up, we are really going to ramp up our content as well. Do some live shows, some live streams, some betting previews, things like that. So with the NFL, it's when it comes to betting, the NFL is the king. It comes, it's such a big part of the football culture from a fan perspective. So we're looking forward to that, no doubt. And if you're a lacrosse fan or looking to get involved in lacrosse, you'll be able to see me next Friday for the National Lacrosse League draft. The pregame show, I believe, starts at 7:00. If you're in Canada, you can stream that at tsn.ca, or if you have a smart TV or a Fire Stick or anything like that, you can bring up the TSN Direct app and watch it exactly there.
Okay, well, thank you again, Pat, for coming on. And I'd like to definitely have you on again, maybe during the NFL season, half the regular season's done, and to talk about the first half of the season, and maybe just before the NLL Crosse League starts up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. And Chris, I can't believe I blew this. Yesterday, or was it yesterday or a couple of days ago, I threw on your t-shirt and it's in the dirty wash right now. I was going to wear it to the show. I completely forgot to clean it for you. So next time you have me on, I promise I will wear your t-shirt. Thank you again for sending me that t-shirt there. So I enjoy it. I wear it all the time. I have it all the time. Today I'm wearing my CoolBet hoodie, but don't worry. I wear that t-shirt. It's comfortable. It's a comfortable t-shirt.
Yeah.
Too.
And I'm also speaking of that, I'm getting my own Live with CDP hats made up, and
Beautiful.
I already got my mug made up, and I already bought from GoDaddy a domain name for
Nice.
a website. So I'm hoping my friend in London will be able to help me with a website, but eventually I will have my own website and I will have my podcast on my website. So as for Facebook, I'm not going to worry about that site anymore. I've survived without it for 30 plus days, and there is life without that website. So as soon as I get my website up and running, I will let you know as well. And I'm also on Twitch now instead of Facebook too. Twitch live streaming, which is something if you want to check out Twitch live streaming.
Yeah, Twitch. I mean, to bring it back to CoolBet, we have a couple of Twitch streamers that we sponsor that go on to our live casino and stream there. And Twitch, it's huge. It's huge. It's not just gaming. I think a lot of people hear Twitch and they just assume, oh, it's video games.
Yep.
I mean, the majority of the people that are on Twitch, it is video games, but there's sports video podcasts, as I mentioned,
Yep.
casino streamers. There's a ton of stuff on Twitch. And good on you, Chris, for continuing to find different ways to promote yourself and to promote your brand.
Yeah, and if you want to follow me on there, it's cpame19 on Twitch.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So, okay, well, I'm going to let you go, Pat. I hope you have a great day and weekend, and we'll definitely stay in touch, and we'll definitely have you come back on again sometime in the fall to talk some NFL and a little bit more about the upcoming National Lacrosse League season, which I hope to attend a game or two this year in Hamilton.
Absolutely, Chris. Maybe we'll make it a game where they're playing Halifax in Hamilton, and maybe I'll come and check that game out with you.
Definitely count me in. Okay, Pat. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
No problem, Chris. Thanks for having me as always, and keep up the grind, buddy. You're killing it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast today with Pat Gregoire from CoolBet Canada and from the Halifax Thunderbirds. And I was just thinking before Pat left that it's been almost 2 years since I met Pat on a sports trip I did September 2019 with Elite Sports Tours, seeing the Eagles take on the Packers at Lambeau Field. And I'm hoping again, maybe in 2022, to do another sports trip again across the border with Elite Sports Tours. And that's a company I would check out as well because I had so much fun great seats, great food, great drink, and it was a good time doing the Packers-Eagles game at Lambeau Field. And I would love to go back to Lambeau Field, even though I'm an Eagles fan. It's a bucket list issue, a bucket list must for anyone who's a National Football League fan and a sports fan as well. Anyways, guys, just to let you know, I do have a second podcast today at 3 o'clock. So, yeah, my next podcast will be today, 3 o'clock, which is about an hour and a half from now. Guest Mike Camito. He's a writer for the LA Kings website. He's a team historian for the OHL Sudbury Wolves, and he's also the author of the Hockey 365 series. So I hope you guys can tune in about an hour and a half, and we'll talk to Mike about his career in hockey as well. And some comments. Shane Train 26. Hey guys, long-time listener, first-time caller. Shane, thank you for watching Live with CDP here on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch live streaming. I really appreciate that, and I hope you're doing well. And before I go, guys, I'm just going to let you know what I do with my podcast after I'm done live. Live with CDP podcast, the audio version is downloaded after each live show, is on Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Spotify and Castbox as well. So again, I just want to say thanks to Pat Gregoire from Quebec, Canada, for coming on today and talking some sports. And I look forward to my next guest at 3 o'clock again, Mike Camito, writer for the LA Kings website, and like I said, team historian for the Sudbury Wolves. He'll be on at 3 o'clock. So anyways, guys, I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching Live with CDP, and we'll see you guys in about an hour and a half live on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch live streaming. Have a great afternoon, people. Have a great afternoon, everyone. We'll talk to you at 3 o'clock with Mike.